The horses are approaching the starting gate.
Thoroughbred racing is the greatest game in the world. It's not just the majesty of the horses or the athleticism of the riders. No, this is a participation sport. These people are involved. Their money has been bet, and they can't wait to see if they've won or lost, if they're right or whether they're wrong. And that's why we're here, to give you a better understanding of the information that's available and give you a few new ideas to help you make an educated selection. Now, some of the information that you need to help you make an educated decision takes place when many of us are still sound asleep, maybe dreaming about that $1 million pick six. It's the morning workouts, and these are very, very important because they are a sign of a horse's good health and fitness. Like human athletes, the thoroughbred needs to be in tip-top shape to bring out the best of their ability. Often they strut their stuff under the watchful eyes of racetrack clockers, who record the times of these important workouts for our handicapping information. It is also important that they properly identify each of these horses to ensure the accuracy of the workout information. Thoroughbred handicapping is a game of information, and the workout data is a big part of it.
Pretty full here.
A new feature of the daily racing form are the workout rankings. Here we can actually assess the merits of a published workout versus other horses the exact same distance. For example, the 2/25 in the workout line means that Seattle's Cielo recorded the second fastest time of 25 other horses that worked over that 3-furlong distance at the Belmont training track. Plus, the clocker's comments on the workout page of the daily racing form can offer insight into the ability of any horse. This can be particularly effective in assessing the merits of a first-time starter. For example, on this date, we read in the clocker's comments that Yellow Mountain bested Flag Lake in this morning workout, one of 12 published workouts for first-time starters, a new feature in the racing form. On the day when Yellow Mountain was set to make his first start, he was already facing many of the horses that Flag Lake had already beaten. This we learned from reading the company line in the daily racing form. Thus, it appeared obvious that Yellow Mountain was an outstanding selection as a first-time starter. And so, one afternoon at Aqueduct in New York,
hustled out of the gate, Yellow Mountain going for the lead. They continue their run down the back stretch, and Yellow Mountain maintains the lead of a length and a half. Under a hand ride, it's Yellow Mountain bounding along and opening it up by 6. Taking second, jiving around. Back in third is Eastern Tune. The others are far back. Coming on down to the line, it will be Yellow Mountain going easily.
Morning workouts can also tip off successful winning trainer patterns. For example, in New York, Shug McGahee always shows a sharp 3-furlong blowout the day before a race. And New York handicappers can often figure out that Scotty Schulhofer brings his live layoff horses back to the races with a solid series of predictable workouts in 4 or 5 day intervals. A perfect example of this is the way Schulhofer brought Boehm back to the races at Gulfstream Park. So let's check out that 5-day pattern. On February 10th at Hialeah, Schulhofer worked Boehm a bullet 47-1 at 4 furlongs. 5 days before that, another bullet workout. And you can see the 5-day intervals that are posted in that day's edition of the Daily Racing Form. But if you went back in past issues of the Form workouts, you could also learn that Boehm worked on January 21st, 5 days before that on January 16th, and 5 days before that on January 11th. It was clear that Boehm fit the successful Schulhofer training pattern.
As they move toward the top of the stretch, into the rail, Boehm takes over the lead. On the outside now, kicking in, Idle Affair will go up after the lead. And from far back, making a run in on the rail. Here comes One Sweet Gal, and One Sweet Gal is full of run. And now swings to the outside for running room. Coming on, Boehm will hold on, and here comes One Sweet Gal. Boehm with the lead, a half a length.
So I think it's very important to clip out and save those workout pages in the Daily Racing Form each and every day. They provide us with a nice historical reference by which we can study and identify winning trainer patterns. Plus, if you spot an inconsistency in a predictable trainer pattern, it is a clear sign that the horse is not ready to win that day. So while the information we gather in the morning workouts is very, very important, as post time approaches, the paddock is the place we want to be. This is our chance to get a look at these horses up close and personal firsthand. And if you look in the trainer statistics in Southern California or the claimed from lines in the Daily Racing Form, you'll find the name of Bob Hess. He's one of Southern California's leading conditioners. Bob, how are you?
Good, Bob.
I know you claim a lot of horses off appearance, so obviously I suspect you think it's very, very important.
Highly important. Like you said, whether we're claiming or handicapping, appearance to me is almost the bottom line. If they don't look good, they won't run well.
All right, for fans who might not be familiar with appearance handicapping, from a positive viewpoint, what should they be looking for?
From a positive aspect, I'd say you want your horse to come into the paddock on his toes, bouncing almost like Muhammad Ali coming into the ring for the first time, ready to run, ready to fight, and ready to win that race.
Of course, I suppose if there's a plus side, there has to be a negative as well. How about a few tips on things to avoid?
I would try to avoid a horse that's all washed out, all sweaty, a nervous horse. Definitely stay away from those horses. In possibility, I'd also try to avoid a horse with bandages for the first time, especially front bandages.
Well, front bandage information is now available in the new Daily Racing Form. It's a statistical little piece of information that I think that you believe is very, very important.
From both angles, claiming or handicapping, I think that first-time bandage information would be critical.
So you'd encourage any fan that comes to the racetrack to maybe spend a few moments in the paddock, particularly if they're unsure of making their final selection, and maybe push them over the top.
Oh, if you have two equal horses, I'd definitely go with that horse that's on his toes, looking good, sharp, ready to go to the war and kick some butt, but not too nervous or too washed out.
I see the horses are being saddled for this race. I know you've got one in here, Bob. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Bob.
All right, that's Bob Hess, and I suppose if Mr. Hess can claim a horse off appearance, you might think of handicapping off this angle as well. But appearance handicapping can only be effective at the racetrack. As you may know, we've entered a new era, simulcasting. And I'm here at the Las Vegas Hilton Race and Sports Superbook, when on any given day, any number of satellite signals are brought in from around the country. You may be experiencing this as well at your home tracks. So what do? Well, the only information we have available to us is the sights and sounds from the television screen and the important information in the Daily Racing Form for which to make our bets.
Trifecta part wheel 3 with 247 with 12457 for $20. Okay. And part wheel 247 with 3 with 12457 for $5. That'll be 300, please. Good luck.
Post time in 5 minutes.
I've seen Speed Figures guru Andy Beyer bet his multiple combinations at every racetrack in the country, so why should meeting him here at the Las Vegas Hilton be any different? Andy, the subject Speed Figures, what are they and why are they important?
Well, in any kind of a race, whether it's the Olympics or the Indy 500 or a horse race, the speed of the competitors is of tremendous importance. Our speed figures in the racing form take into account the condition of the track that horses have run over, the distance, and tell you in one number how fast a horse has run and who is faster than who.
Of course, simulcasting is getting bigger and bigger. People are here at locations like the Las Vegas Hilton all over the country. How can people use your speed figures to best serve their simulcasting needs?
Well, I think this is a place where they're more crucial than anywhere else. If you're at the racetrack, you can look at the horses, you can watch the races. Here, the players at a simulcast are still in competition with the Sharpies at the racetrack, at the betting windows, and speed figures give a player away from the track at least one professional tool to work with.
I know the Beyer figures in the racing form, if you read them, the higher the number, the faster the race, but I know you can carry it maybe even a little farther than that.
Well, Bob, in terms of using speed figures and how to do it, I mean, you could write a book on that subject. In fact, I have written a book on that subject. But very simply, when I sit down with the racing form, the first thing I do is look at the last figure of each horse and look at which one has earned the highest number in his last race. That's my point of reference for the whole race. If the top figure is an 80, I'll throw out horses who haven't approached that. If somebody else has run an 85 2 or 3 races ago, I'll take a harder look at that horse and say, can he run back to that 85 today?
Of course, there are other speed figures available. Thorograph and the Ragozin sheets are popular, and I know Len Ragozin and his band developed the bounce theory, which means that if a horse runs an abnormally fast race in his last in comparison with 3 or 4 beyond that, he or she won't repeat it. I buy it. Do you?
No, not fully. There's no doubt that a real stressful race can take a physical toll on a horse. But to me, if a horse runs 70, 70, 70, 90, I'm not going to throw him out the next time. I'll take a look at that 90. Maybe he earned that figure under really favorable circumstances. He's a mud horse and he caught a muddy track. But if he earned it legitimately, I'm willing to bet him right back.
Well, Andy and I might disagree on the bounce theory, but we agree on one thing. If a horse has a top number and he's a square price, don't be afraid to bet him, bounce or no bounce.
And now that you've mentioned that, Bob, I've got one coming up right now, if you'll excuse me.
All right, good luck. So then, speed figures are very, very important. In my view, they're the most important tool in handicapping, whether you're here at a simulcast outlet or at your local racetrack. Now, the speed figures and all our other tools help us identify the win factors in each race. It's very, very important that you try and pick the best horse at the longest odds. Suit yourself, but I'm not a particular fan of place and show betting. To me, the risk is simply not worth the reward. Nor am I a fan of the popular 3-horse exacta box, or baseball as it's called in the West. For unless you're getting juicy odds, the 3-horse box is usually a bad bet. Let's say you wanted to box your 3 favorites in this race, numbers 1, 2, and 3. As you can see by these possible payouts, our best return would be the 2-3 combination, which would pay $24 for a $2 bet. But since a $2 perfecta or exacta box costs us $12, the $24 best case scenario payout represents only a 1-to-1 or even money return on our investment. And over the long run, you would have to hit 50% of these bets just to break even. If you want to play the exacta or perfecta box, try to get at least 3-to-1 in your money. For example, here is a $2 daily double wheel on the number 2 horse, who just paid $10 to win the first race. As you can see by the possible daily double returns, if the big favorite number 5 wins the second race, the double would pay $20, and thus only return our original $20 investment. Had we bet the $20 on the 2 horse on the first race to win at 4-to-1, we would have $100 in our pocket instead of the same 20. And you'll note that 3 other horses, numbers 1, 2, and 9, would return less than that $100. In my judgment, wheels are like playing the lottery. You bet and then you pray. Don't get me wrong, I do like exactas and daily doubles, but try and limit yourself to 3 or 4 combinations. And I absolutely love the pick 3 or daily triple, as it's called in some parts of the country. In this bet, you select 3 winners and there's only a single mutual takeout. In my opinion, it's the best bet at the racetrack. As far as the pick 6 is concerned, this is a tough bet. It takes a lot of money and a lot of luck. How do you play the pick 6? Well, identify the win factors in all the pick 6 races then figure out how much it will cost you. If you can afford it, go for it. If you can't afford it, try and find 3 or 4 of your buddies and form a syndicate. That can be a lot of fun. But in my opinion, never, ever, ever eliminate a strong win factor just to save a few bucks on the pick six, because a small $20 pick six ticket can be just as strong as a compromised $200 ticket. Notice we have used the term win factors. Simply, a win factor is any horse in the race you are handicapping that you think has a chance to win. This could be as few as 1 or 2, or in a wide open race, it could be the entire field. The fascinating part about thoroughbred handicapping is that there are literally hundreds of angles and systems that you can use. And if something's been successful for you in the past, I heartily endorse that you stay with it. But as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, there's been several points of overemphasis in the last 5 to 10 years, and I want to share a few of those right now. One of them is track bias. You know, I get a kick out of when I go to the racetrack and they've run the first race, and the number 1 horse goes wire to wire from the rail, and 4 or 5 people run around screaming, "The rail is golden, the rail is golden." Please. To identify a track bias, wait till the end of the day. And if 8 or 9 of those races are run either on the lead or off the pace on the outside, then you have a track bias. Second point of overemphasis, off track, slop or mud. You know, the Daily Racing Form shows us a little box with a horse's historical record of off tracks. But in my eyes, 1 out of every 5 horses love an off track, 1 out of every 5 horses hate an off track, and the others are going to run if they're in good shape and they're in the proper conditions. Now, trouble lines. We read those in the charts and in the Daily Racing Form lines. Horses that get blocked or steadied, but just because a horse has been in trouble last time doesn't necessarily mean he's a good bet today. Equipment changes. Mudcocks can be very effective at certain racetracks, but what about blinkers on and blinkers off? Well, that's a sign that a trainer has been dissatisfied with his horse. He's trying something new to get a better performance. And I'd rather bet on a horse where a trainer has a positive viewpoint rather than a negative one with blinkers on or blinkers off. Finally, what I call the blind faith kind of thing. You know, people who love to bet first-time Lasix just because of that fact, or people who love to bet leading jockeys, or people who love to bet the leading trainers. In my view, over the long haul, these will be unprofitable plays. But the change of rider can be a very important handicapping point, especially when you consider European imports, chippers, or maidens. I'm here in the Jocks Room at Santa Anita, home of some of the greatest riders in the world. People like De La Houssaye, De Sormo, Pincay, Stevens, the list goes on. And certainly Chris McCarron. And one day not too long ago, Chris McCarron had an interesting decision. He had ridden a horse named Supermay, a very game and consistent turf horse. But on that day he was named on Jahafil, a European. McCarron opted to ride that horse and gave his backers quite a thrill.
Goes in, they're all set. Deal for the San Marino, sent on their way. They came off to a perfect beginning. Carnival Baby, Claret in the gold cap is now sent along, and on the inside, Jahafil has taken a strong hold, and Jahafil pulls his way to the front. 3/4 of a mile to go. Chris McCarron has Jahafil nice and relaxed out here now, just takes him along at a steady pace. At the top of the lane now, and Jahafil kicks on for home. Jahafil finds more. Fast Cure and Supermay come to chase him home, but Jahafil is in full flight for the wire, and he's widening through the lane. He goes clear by 5. Now you can make that 6. And Jahafil, a very impressive US debut as he annihilates them. Wins it a half dozen. Supermay and Fast Cure just a nose-splitting them for second. Now entering the winner's circle, number 3, Jahafil. The winning jockey, Chris McCarron.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Great ride on Jahafil. I knew
Thanks.
that was a tough call for you that day here at Santa Anita. How'd that all come about with choosing him over Supermay?
Well, last year, Sandy Schulman, the trainer of Jahafil, went over to Europe and bought a bunch of horses out of a sale over there. And a couple months ago, he went to my agent, Scott McClone, and told him that he's got one that he thought he could really run, to keep an eye on him. And Scotty was watching the workouts and everything, and when he got close to a race, Sandy asked us for the call.
Is this a fail-safe system? Is this something that handicappers should be looking for?
Well, you know better than I do. There's no such thing as a fail-safe system, but it's a pretty good tip-off when you see a top rider, riding a horse that's a new face.
What about jockeys in general, Chris? I know a lot of handicappers wonder about their value. What's your own take on the subject?
Well, it makes a great deal of difference what rider is riding the horse, especially when you are dealing with a new face, because if you're dealing with a first-time starter or a first-time horse in this country, that can be a real tip-off to the handicappers that the horse has got to have some ability to have a top rider on him.
And in a scenario where you have two horses that are about the same ability and you maybe have a top 5 rider versus maybe a guy who's not in the top of the standings, could that be a little push for a handicapper?
Absolutely, sure. That could be your final tip-off. If you're caught between two horses and you like one rider better than another, or if you see that the rider is jumping off one in favor of a new face, that could be a real big tip-off.
Well, I know you got a hot first-timer coming up, so good luck. Let's hope he runs as fast as Jaha Field.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
Okay. Chris McCarron's mount, Jaha Field, came to us from Europe that day, where, of course, grass racing is king. The new racing form provides us with additional information so we can size up these European invaders. Information like course direction, more detailed race description, information about purse structure, and more info on trainers as well. What about grass racing? Well, it's completely different than racing on the dirt. It's like apples and oranges, but I love it for a couple of different reasons. First and foremost, once horses establish that they like this stuff, they stay consistent. They don't seem to stray in and out of form cycles like their counterparts on the dirt. And number two, they provide us with some deliciously interesting betting opportunities. But how do we handicap racing on the turf? A couple of different theories. Number one is that horses with big, flat, pancake-like feet seem to skip over the grass, and they have an advantage. And of course, the second theory on grass racing is breeding. I remember a couple of weeks ago at Gulfstream Park, I was in a big betting slump. But I discovered through my own research that a filly named Liberata's mother had thrown 3 winners on the grass. Well, that was good enough for me. I bet Liberata that day, first time on the grass, and she paid a juicy $72.
Up on the far outside now, Kate's Dilemma kicking in 3 wide, and now Surge is up after the leader, and from way back, Liberata is closing ground. Liberata under a full head of steam and getting through between horses. Future Starlet through the stretch on the outside. Liberata coming on. Kate's Dilemma battles alongside, and Liberata storms up to get the lead.
Well, I'll be the first to admit $72 scores like Liberata don't come along every day. But I'm here on the lush Santa Anita turf course with the columnist for the Daily Racing Form on bloodlines and breeding expert Ed Fontaine. And Ed, how about the importance of breeding in turf racing?
Bob, when I handicap a turf race, the first thing I look for is a good turf pedigree. The Daily Racing Form gives you the sire, the dam sire, and we've added the sire of the sire. Chances are that if any of them ran well on grass themselves, or if they come from a family that's run well on grass, their offspring will like it too.
What about handicappers that don't know that information? Where can they get some good, solid information about grass breeding?
You see, that's why it's important to read the articles in the Racing Form, not just look at the past performances. We have articles on all the races. We have columns from all over the country on breeding. We have the closer looks, and we have the handicappers analysis. And all our writers and handicappers do their homework, and they can come up with a tidbit of information that can help you cash a ticket.
Yeah, like that Liberata ticket that I caught at Gulfstream. That closer look is, I know, available in most of the major markets, and I read it every once in a while, and that tips me off to some good, juicy grass information every once in a while.
Well, we have a pretty extensive breeding library in all our offices, and the closer look writers will delve into them when they see a first-time starter on grass. And if they see something there, they'll let you know about it.
Well, I know we've got a race coming up in about an hour that has 5 first-time starters on the grass. So I'll tell you what I want you to do. I want you to do a little research for me, and I'll see you at the windows. How's that?
Okay, bring some money.
No problem. All right, Ed Fontaine of the Daily Racing Form. You know, another feature of the form is the European time form ratings. Again, that's a numerical evaluation of the horses that come to us from Europe, particularly England. And here's the way it works. If you see a horse that's rated from 120 or higher, well, that horse is eligible to compete in any top-level grass race, including the Breeders' Cup. If they're rated from between 100 to 120, they'll be competitive in any allowance event. And I'd stay away from anything with a rating under 100. But keep one very important point in mind when you're analyzing European invaders. That is, if they fail to run credibly in their first start, chances are they haven't acclimated to the North American climate. And I'd wait until they show a good race before you get interested. Racing form. Get your daily racing form here. How you doing today? There you go. Good luck today. Have fun. Racing form here. Get your racing form. Get your racing form. How you doing today, sir? There you go. Good luck there, sir. Racing. Thank you very much. You know, the racing form has been the primary source of information to horse players for many years. In addition to the new European time form ratings, there are several new features I think you'll find very beneficial. The performance at track and distance lines serves two obvious purposes. For example, in today's distance race, a seasoned horse shows only 10 sprints in his past performance lines, and you want to find out how he's fared at today's longer distance. The expanded class codes also help us see a subtle drop in class. Before, you might not be able to identify the specific conditions of an allowance race. You might not have been familiar with each track's purse structure. Now there's no more guesswork. The form will list the precise conditions of every race, and the form will also be providing extra fractional times. Additionally, fans can still get the regular racing form features like the trainer and jockey statistics and standings, and the designation of the 45-day or more layoff line in a horse's past performance. And, of course, the form gives you great insight into the racing game with their regular columns and feature stories led by legendary executive columnist Joe Hirsch.
Alongside of him, but Cool Chili's got a lot left, and he kicks on Bow. Now gets the backhander and goes on Bow.
Power Stride, 2.5 classic, 1.5 valued 5. Iron Peak, a half.
Sandy Case coming late for second.
6, Wild and Cool, 7, and Bifurcate. Cool Chili, 2, classic, 1.5. Power Stride, 1.5 valued 6. Some call it 2, Iron Peak 10, Wild and Cool 7, and Bifurcate.
Behind me is Jack Wilson, supervisor of the Daily Racing Form chart callers. Along with his assistant, they provide us with the accurate information that you see in the charts of the Daily Racing Form. It's very important that you clip out and save these charts each and every day, for they help us identify the key race theory. Any past race that produces 3 or more winners of their next start can be called a key race. To help us identify that key race, we must mark and update those charts we have saved every day. Take a few minutes to note the winners of each race. This is how we do it. First race at Santa Anita, we see that Master Order graduated from the first race on March 12th. So we go back in our files and find the March 12th charts, find Master Order, and put a little W next to his name. So then we go back to the original day, and we see in the second race, Drifting Cowboy was a first-time starter. Don't have to worry about him. And then in the third race, Mysterioso came to us from England. We don't have to worry about him. But in the fourth race, Glamorous Greek, he won the fourth on February 25th. So again, we go back to our charts on February 25th, the fourth race, and put a little W next to Glamorous Greek. Again, back to the original date, Fabulous Bolger in the 5th at Santa Anita, won out of March 18th. So we get our March 18th charts and put a little W next to Fabulous Bolger. I think you get the idea. Now, if a race in our files graduates 3 or more winners, we call this a key race. And we look for horses to come out of that race the next time they run. For example, Diazo was entered at Santa Anita in the 3rd race on February 27th. He had come out of the 6th race at Hollywood on December 6th. So by going back and checking the chart of December 6th at Hollywood, and presto, 3 winners out of this race. That is a key race. So Diazo had come out of a race with 3 winners. In fact, he had already beaten 2 of those horses. So he was a key race play that day.
Now, where they go. Sazend was off slowly. Niner Bush heading to the lead. Now down at the rail, here comes Lucky Navajo. Diazo on the outside gets up to Racer, joins second. Altiplano's racing in 4th. They get to the top of the lane. Down at the rail, Lucky Navajo. But it's Diazo who kicks on for home, and Torrelay coming on gamely in 3rd. They head for home. Diazo on the outside. Down at the rail is Lucky Navajo. Torrelay not quite making up enough ground. And Diazo kicking on for home. Diazo has the better of Lucky Navajo now, and he's starting to pull clear in the final 80. And it's Diazo going on to win it. Diazo pulls away to beat Lucky Navajo.
So while the key race theory is an example of a positive handicapping angle, there are negative ones to consider as well, or things to avoid. Take sprint races, for instance. Anytime you encounter a sprint race in which there are 3 or 4 or more of those one-dimensional front-running speed types, it's a race you should avoid, and horses you should avoid. I'd pass a race like that. If, on the other hand, you get that one speed horse, that's a golden opportunity, particularly at a distance, because believe it or not, the longer the race, the more dangerous is the front speed. Now, there are other things to avoid as well. 3 to 5, 4 to 5 shots. You don't need those kind of horses. go to the restaurant, have a sandwich and a cold drink. You'll come back for some action a little bit later on in the card. Professional maidens, you know the types. They've had 10, 12, 15 chances to win. Throw them out as well. And finally, sucker horses or hangers or herders. They're horses that if you look in their past performance of the daily racing form, these horses show more seconds and thirds than they do wins. They're horses to avoid, and you can identify these kind of horses by checking out their beaten lengths in their last 2 calls in the racing form past performance. If the last beaten length is more than the previous beaten length, that's a sign of a sucker horse or a hanger. Those are horses you absolutely want to avoid.
At the top of the lane, and Ali Danan has gone well clear now. Ali Danan leads it by 6 lengths.
So the point is relax and have some fun. Thoroughbred racing is the greatest game in the world, and I think you'll get a bigger kick if you pick your own winners. Doesn't matter whether you bet $2, $200, or $20,000. The sharpest experts in this game are only right 1 out of 3 times. With a little bit of luck, you can be right as well.